are going to see a new concept called performance testing. Now, performance testing as such is a pretty new concept that came up. It is not like 30-40 years old. It came up after somewhere around in the late 90s. That's when performance testing just started up, and it boomed after 2000. Let's see what is performance testing. Okay, so now in the initial stages when applications were getting created and people were moving into software, the major applications that were creating were basically Windows-based application. Windows-based application or Linux-based application. It was not a web-based application. That's what I'm trying to say. Now, when web started coming in, that is your World Wide Web started coming in. Give me 1 second. So when World Wide Web came in, right, still performance testing was not great because very few users were moved into web, and people were just exploring web and they were seeing all those things. But as days passed by, what happened? People started concentrating on customers. How to reach multiple customers. Initially, they had just a store where all the customers would come to them. Now when they started seeing the web where it can go into your house, so what they did, they wanted to start bringing their stuff on the web where you can sit at home and reach it. So if a person who's in Virginia, right, Virginia, can buy a product whose store is in New Jersey, right? He need not travel to New Jersey in order to buy this. So that concept of bringing the whole market into your house boomed up because of this web. Now, when it boomed out, what happened? More and more customers started accessing the web. Because you don't need to nowadays, if you want to buy a product, a Walmart product, you actually don't need to go to the shop. You can register, go to walmart.com, buy the product, submit it, and they will deliver it to your house. So the strain of going to the shop, picking up, standing in the queue is gone now, right? Or if you want to buy a book, you just go to Amazon. You don't need to go to a bookshop. Right, where you have a preview of that book, you can read in your leisure time, see everything, and then send. Now, what happened? Now you don't want a hard copy of the book; you'll go to Kindle, right? The soft copy of the book. So people have changed considerably compared to what we were previously, right? When I was a kid, I didn't even know what is a mobile phone. Today, my 18-year-old son who still doesn't know what is a mobile phone, but he wants a mobile phone because it's a touch screen. So when he clicks on that, something moves, some sound comes up. So things are changing a lot. Even in your house, you would have seen how you were when you were young to today when you are kids. You see drastic changes coming up. Now, these changes have brought considerable impact on the customers. Right now, you are the customers. Now, when you wanted something fast. You don't want to wait. So that's why you don't want to go to a shop, wait in the queue. You wanted to make it pretty quick. So what happened? More and more customers started getting into online. The World Wide Web started getting into online, right? And started purchasing stuff. Now, what happened? Initially, when there were very few users, people were not worried about how things would work when or how a customer would feel the application. They were not bothered about those things because I know that I'm the only one who's selling book and all the customers have to come to me. When my application is slow, they are not bothered. But as and when the World Wide Web started booming up, nowadays you don't need a you don't need a shop to start a business, right? You don't need a shop to start a business. You can start your business at your house only. So you can start a bookstore completely online with no shop. So whenever someone buys your book, all you need to do is go to a nearby bookstore, buy that book and send it to them. So all is that, say you are getting the book for $9 here, you might sell it for $10 and make a dollar profit. Right? So that is how business started coming up. People started learning that, you can, with the World Wide Web, you don't need to have a physical shop there. You can just sell the product online. So what happened? Competition started. So competition started coming up. People started in where you are the only one who had a bookstore and trying to sell. Multiple people started competition. So now you as a customer is sitting here, you will go to Google and find who is giving me the cheapest book price. Who's giving me? So there are 10 customers, 10 client shops that come up, 10 websites that come up and list down here. Right? Now you click on the shop. What happens? Click the first one. It goes here and spins and spins and spins and spins and spins. It's waiting. You wait for a minute. Then you're like, what the hell is this? Let me go to the next one. And that guy, the moment you click, that guy pops up. You see everything. You buy the book. Now, who lost the customer? The first guy lost the customer. Right? Guys, you are able to understand this. You are able to understand this. Now, you lost the customer, right? You lost the customer. So what happened? People started going to places where they can get their product faster. They can buy the product faster. Rather than waiting and spinning and waiting a lot of time. You want everything fast. So you go onto the line, you want to buy some product, you check everything, you finish everything and come out. You can't waste half a day for getting one product out because the application is very slow. So this started mapping into dollars, right? The customer, this particular website lost its customer because his application was very, very slow. While the other guy got the customer because he was pretty quick to come in and sell the product. So that whole concept of me getting in faster is directly proportional to the business of the company. This is how performance testing boomed up, which was a concept where people were nowhere interested in getting this, nowhere interested in investing on this. Suddenly people started investing on this because they were losing their customer. Even though you have a perfect application with 99.5% bug-free application, but your application is slow, you lose your customer. So those are things that you have to be very careful. Then, if imagine some 500 customers are accessing my application and they are clicking on the purchase button and the application goes down. What's going to happen now? Oh my God, I'm losing my customer here. You do twice, you do thrice, you feel frustrated. Let's see, go to the next customer. So I don't know how, when 500 customers are in my system, how my application is going to work. I don't know that. So how do you find those things out? Those things are revealed only when you run X number of users or 500 users in the system and find out how your application behaves. So those things can be focused only when you're doing performance testing, right? If I'm going global and the whole, say, 2,000 people around the world are accessing my application, can my server or my CPU memory withstand that? So much of load, can it withstand? How do you find out? Is it possible, let me clean this up. Is it possible, right? Is it possible to have 500 people, physical people sitting in the computer, and then a supervisor here asking them to click? So you all click a button and he clocks it. Is it possible?
No, Rajesh. It will take a long time, right?
It will take a long time to arrange 500 people. It will take a long time to get the system.
It's expensive too.
It is expensive.
Right.
So people don't want to do this. Right? So how do you do this? That's where we start using tools that can mimic this particular environment.
Okay.
Of having 500 people sitting in the computer and pushing up the request, and a supervisor going to control and see what is the time taken. This whole process is going to become virtual.
So it's being automated, and
yes, it's being automated, and it's going to go virtual, where you don't have 500 people sitting there. You will have virtual users who's going to sit and do this activity what you want the actual person to do. You're able to get me?
Right.
Okay. So now, what is performance testing all about? The performance testing is all about finding how my system behaves. One, how my system or how my application behaves. It's a part. Load testing is a part, but we'll talk about it. First, performance testing is how my application behaves under load when X number of users are accessing my system. Two, how my system behaves, system or infrastructure, how my infrastructure behaves. These are key things that you wanted to find out. So when you're looking at performance testing can be divided into multiple types. So let's see what are the types of performance testing. What are the types of performance testing? So now, in general, we know we are working on the software, right? Software can be divided into two things. What are the two things? We can say black box and we can say white box. Software testing. White box. Now, black box again can be divided into two. It's called the functional and non-functional. Functional and non-functional. Non-functional testing is what we are going to see now, right? Non-functional testing is performance testing. Now, why do we call performance testing a non-functional testing? Anyone can guess why do we call performance testing a non-functional testing? While functional testing will come and will be divided into manual and automation. Why do we call this a non-functional testing? Anyone? Yes?
We don't write functions or we don't script anything.
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
Like in manual or automation, like we actually automation we wrote the script and everything, right?
Yes.
But I guess we don't do that in the performance testing.
We have to write scripts. You're going to learn when you're learning a tool called Load Runner. You will be writing scripts for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
You said there is no function to be tested.
Then what are you testing? If you're not testing an application, then what are you testing? You are testing the same application, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. If I'm not
But,
testing, yeah.
we won't be keying in any data or something like that.
See, if I wanted to test, say, example, the Mercury tours only. I want to see whether if I create 500 orders or submit 500 orders, how my application is going to behave. Unless you key in the data, how can you run the test? You cannot do that.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. What is it?
Maybe it's done both manually and automation is also possible, manual is also possible.
No. Performance testing, are you going to make 500 people sit in a system and click the button?
No, but virtually it's possible, right?
Virtually is possible, but that's not what. Let me explain that. What do you mean by non-functional? Non-functional means that you are not going to do any, here we are not going to find any functional defects. Functional defects. Here we are not going to test any functionality. We are not going to test how the component of that particular function works. We are not going to test integration of that particular component. No, these are all not what we are going to do. All we are going to do is we are going to take the system test cases, and that is right from log in to log out, and run the test. So here we are not going to find functional defects. No. We assume that this whole thing is completed and the application end to end is defect free. Here we are only going to find out how my application is going to behave under load. That is, if I have multiple users accessing the system, how my system is going to behave, or my infrastructure can handle that many load. This is what is the focus on. That is why we call this non-functional testing. Okay. Guys, you are able to understand this? Any questions? Any questions? So any other questions? Fine. Now, let's see what are the types of non-functional testing. So now we are going to focus on the types of non-functional testing. So performance testing is all about non-functional testing, and we are going to focus and see what are the different types of non-functional testing. Okay. Let's see types of non-functional testing, NFT. 1. The first type of non-functional testing that you do is load testing. Second type is stress testing. Third is volume testing. Fourth is capacity testing. Fifth is reliability recovery testing. Sixth is scalability testing. So these are the 6 types of testing you will be doing. In common, you will do load test, stress test, reliability test. These are the 3 common type of tests on a day-to-day basis you will be doing. Volume, capacity, scalability, all we will do might be one time, twice, not more than that. But on a release to release, you'll do load test, stress test, and reliability test. These are the 3 tests that we commonly do. Now let's see what are those things that, well, let's see this one at a time. Let's see these type of tests in detail. You guys, you don't need to write down. Nothing you need to write down. Whatever I am teaching is here. Whatever I am teaching you is here. Performance testing. Go to performance testing introduction. and whatever I'm teaching you is here. Okay, everything is here. By tomorrow you will get you'll have the video also here. Okay, so you don't need to write down anything. Don't worry. Fine. So now let's see what is load test. Let's see what is load test. Load testing. Now load testing, right? Load testing is a type of testing where how do you say that? Where application is tested under peak load. So we'll say with type of testing where application is tested under normal or peak load. Okay, what is mean by this? See, on an average day, you will know how much load that your application is handling. Now, how do we get all those information? When we are talking about something called workload modeling, you will have a better understanding of how to get the data for the normal load and peak load. That's a separate concept. We will be working on that. It's called workload modeling. We will talk about it as a separate concept. So now, looking at this, the type of test, right? Load test is a type of test where application is tested under normal or peak load. So this is a common test that we do. So we find out from the workload what is the peak load of the application, and load test, stress test, we usually run it for 1 hour. Okay. So there are three concepts that we need to know is ramp up, steady state, ramp down. We'll see that as we are going on a day-to-day basis when we are learning on performance testing. We'll learn those concepts. But just remember that the test is always run for 1 hour. So we find out the peak load from workload modeling and then run the test for 1 hour. So that is what you call load test. The next one that we are going to see is stress test. Next what we are going to see is stress test. Now stress test is a type of test in which we are going to test what is the break point of the application. Say for example, I am going to test what is the break point of the application. What do you mean by the break point? Say example peak load. Peak load is always considered as 1x, 1 time the average load on the system. Now, if I want to know whether my application can handle if there is a sudden spike, say the marketing team has brought in a new offer where and they wanted to go into market with this offer. When that offer looks good, people they want to purchase that product. So new people start coming in, they are going to start purchasing the product. So what happens normally in a day, you would have seen the load like this. Suddenly what happens is since there was a marketing change, the load spiked up like this, right, on the day. So what happened? This spike, I don't know, might be 2 times the normal load, 3 times the normal load. We don't know, right? So will my application handle that? Will my infrastructure handle that particular if there is a sudden 3 times more load coming into the system? Also, when will my application break? That is, when will my application stop responding? At what load my application will stop responding? It cannot take anymore. Right? Example. Say example, you are carrying a bag, right? Or you went to the grocery and you bought all the grocery stuffs. You are trying to take it into your house. There is a limit in which you can carry. You cannot carry everything in one shot, right? Say example, you are holding few of the boxes and they are trying to keep more boxes on you. At one point, you automatically will drop all the boxes. You cannot carry anymore. Similar is what the application is. At one point, the application cannot handle this many number of requests that is coming in. It also requires memory. It also requires CPU processing. At one point, when it's not able to process so many requests that are coming in, it will break down. We want to know at what point this breaks down. All these things are done in this point. Where, at what point my application will break. That is the test that we do in. That is the test that we do in stress test. So what are the questions? Yeah.
Rajesh, so are we increasing the load and then finding the breakpoint?
Yes, we will increase the load. So say what we will do, but we will increase the load in a linear proportion. So we will say 1x is your load test. Then I'll check 2x.
Okay.
Then I'll go 3x.
Okay.
Then I'll go 4x. If my application is still able to respond, there is a specific SLA, service level agreement. We'll talk about this and all. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
You'll say example, when I buy a product, when I click on purchase, within say 2 seconds, I should get the response.
Okay.
So 1x it's coming less than 2 seconds. 2x it might be say 1x it is coming in 0.9 seconds. When you do 2 times, it might come in 1.2 seconds. 3x it is coming to 1.4 seconds. Like that you will see an increase because of the load. At one point, at say example 5x or sometimes 6x, your application will not respond only.
Okay. That's when it's the breakpoint.
That's when you will say the application broke. So breakpoint can be defined in different ways. One, the application is not responding. Second, your CPU spikes up to 100%. That's also a breakpoint. But if your CPU is 100% and still the application is responding within the SLA, then you are still good to go with a higher volume.
So we have a standard requirement, like how much time it has to take to respond.
Yes, but that's not an industry standard and timing that is being given. It depends on application to application, depends on company to company.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So it depends on what application you are working with and depends on which company, what is the company standard that they want to follow, all those things.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so here the load is like the number of customers using your website, right?
Correct. The load is the number of customers using the website.
And so 1x, 2x is like you are actually virtually, providing those many customers to your application and see how faster or how well your application is running.
Customer, wait, hold on. This is your computer. Okay, this is the server. How does the server know how many customers are coming? The server does not know. Server only sees the request that is coming to it. Right?
Okay.
So if you have another customer here, another request comes. So that's how the server knows that X number of requests are coming. So this is what the tool does, it will take off this and form a presentation layer for you. So it will just send the request to the server.
Okay.
So what will happen? The server will think that if 500 people or say even 50 people you are testing, 50 people are trying to access because it's giving 50 different requests.
Okay.
Okay. So for the server, it's only the request. It does not know it's coming as from you or me.
Okay.
Okay. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So is this what we call it as maintenance? Maintaining the application? No.
Maintenance is that after you go into production, a team will see whether that any issues are coming up. If there is any customer calling up and saying that they have a problem with a specific functionality, those team will check and resolve that problem. That is maintenance. This
Okay.
comes as a part of your testing.
Okay. And is it done by a tester or
It is done by a performance tester.
performance tester? Okay.
It's a completely different concept from manual testing, automation testing.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, thanks. Yeah.
Fine. So now let's see what are some of the questions that we would ask in performance in stress testing. 1. What is the max load a system can sustain? What is the max load the system can sustain? 2. How is the system breakdown? 3. Will the system recover once it's down? 4. What are the different ways system will break? What are the different ways the system will break? So these are the questions that we will be addressing when we are working with stress test. So what is the maximum load the system can sustain? We will address this because we are going to stress the system and find out where the break point is. This is what we are going to find out, right? This is what we are going to find out. So we'll say, what is the maximum load the system can sustain? This is what we are going to find out. How is the system breaking down? At which part of the system breaks down first? Those things we are going to find out using this stress test. Will the system recover once it's down? We have seen the entire architecture, right? Where you have multiple web servers and multiple app servers. If one server goes down, automatically the load balancer will move it to the other server. So it is able to recover or it's not able to recover. What is the different ways in which you can break your system? You will see you can break the system by putting number of users. You can break the system by putting number of requests. You can break the system in different ways. We will see what are the different ways. So those are questions that you will address when you are working with stress test. Okay, guys, any questions till now? Any questions? Any questions? Fine. Next, what we are going to see is what is the next type of test. I'm going to clean this up. So we saw load test, we saw stress test. Next, what we are going to see is volume test. Volume test. Now, volume test is a type of a test where, say, example, let's write the definition for it. Volume test is a type of test to check the effect of the system with large data. Okay, say example. Let's take a simple example of a banking application only. Okay, say Bank of America. BOFA. Now, Bank of America, when they started, they would have had say 100 customers. Today, they have more than 2 million customers. right? And these customers do transaction on a day-to-day basis. So every swipe that you do with your credit card or debit card forms a line in your statement, right? It comes as a specific row in your statement. So you might have purchased one item in a shop and then another item in the same shop. You would have done 4 swipes. All the 4 will come as 4 different lines. So every transaction, they're not going to combine this transaction and give you the sum. No, they're going to put every line. So imagine for Citibank, there is 2.5 million transactions a day all over the world. That is global. 2.5 million transactions. That is 2.5 times you have swiped. 2.5 million times people have swiped. So in a day you will see this many number of transactions. So my team sits and processes all these transactions and puts it into a data warehouse. That's a huge database. Now this data warehouse can handle trillions and billions and trillions of transactions. So what we do, they move it into this database, this data warehouse. So this data warehouse is increasing its rows day by day, right? So how will my application, now when you're going into your application and you are saying that you logged into your application and then you are saying, I want to search between May, say 2014 to June 2015, I want to see all the transactions that happened. When you put this query, it's going to search between this trillion transactions, your specific name and the data for that specific date. Imagine the amount of data it has to scan through, right? So how will my application behave if I have large number of data? It's going to slow down. Actually, it's going to slow down because if you wanted to test, if you want to check with 10 lines and 1 million lines, the amount of data, the amount of time it is required to scan through this and the amount of time that is required to scan through this is huge. So you are going to test how my application will behave if there is large number of data. So you will create a test data, mimic a test data in your environment, and you will create that many number of data and you will run the same load test only. You will run the same load test. You're not going to run stress test. You're going to run the same load test and see with minimal data how my response time was, with large number of data how my response time is. So this is what we do in volume test. Guys, you are able to understand this? Any questions?
I have a question.
Oh, sorry. I thought I unmuted you. Yeah, go ahead.
No. So explain what is the difference between volume test and load test?
Okay, load test, right? You don't put huge data in it. Whatever data that is available in your, say you are running in your performance test environment. Whatever data is there in the performance environment, you run it with that data. You are only worried about how your application behaves. Right? Okay. You are not bothered about what is the data behind. But in volume test, you are not bothered about anything other than the data.
So how much data it can handle?
How much, if my application is, I'm doing a search and if I have 10 records coming up in search, that's what you will be doing when you're running your load test. Yeah. Similarly, if I have, say, 5,000 data coming up, how my application will behave? Might be in production, this is not there at all. But you are testing, say you tested for, say, 500. Now you are testing for 10 times the load.
Okay.
If your application is responding, that means it might take another 2 years for it to go to that amount of data. But you know that your application can handle even after 2 years of, even though 2 years of data, it still can perform in the way it should perform. Okay. You're getting me?
Yeah, but then you said the scaling was done in stress testing, right?
Scaling was done for what? For your application, right? Did I talk about anything about test data?
No, but so scaling is done to the application, meaning to the users of the application.
No, stress test, right? Stress test, what you are doing, you have your servers, right?
Yeah.
Now you here will send a request and get the response back.
Yeah.
Now if I am sending 100 requests, my response comes back.
Yeah.
That is my 1x.
Hmm.
If I send 200 requests and my response is coming back,
Yeah.
that is my 2x.
Correct.
I send 1,000 requests and
So
the
that is with the
application is
data,
not
right?
responding. With the data, but you test with only the load data that is available. That is your current production volume.
Okay. Okay.
So if in your current production, that is application is already there, has only 1,000 data in it.
Hmm.
You will only mimic for 1,000 for your load test. You will not increase that.
Okay. Okay. And
Right?
then in stress test,
Stress test, you are increasing the request, not the data.
Got it. Okay.
Got it?
Yeah.
With current situation, current data that's in production, if X number of volume increases, how will my system behave? That is what is stress test.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
But in volume test, you are going to take the load test application,
Hmm.
but you are going to increase the data into 1x, 2x, 3x, 4x.
Okay. Okay. Got it. So
You
if
got
you're
it?
seeing if the servers can handle that much data.
Servers can handle that much data.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Got it.
You getting me?
Yeah.
Any other questions, guys? Yeah.
Yeah, Rajesh, so load test and stress test, we are only assuming that, this many users use it and how it can handle it, right?
Yes.
When we move to volume, then we look behind the database, how the database is going to handle it.
No. You're not talking about the database. See, what happens is, say example, you are searching for this particular date.
Okay.
Okay. What it will do is, it will send a junk, the database will send all the information that is required. But application need not show all the information what the database sends.
Yeah.
Application will truncate and show you only what you require.
Yeah.
Got it? The things are done in your server level.
Okay.
Okay, the truncating part, everything is done in the server level. So what is happening is, you're not testing the database. You're testing if there is large number of volume in the database, right? When I send a request, it has to scan through the whole volume in order to get that. Say, imagine you have only, say in the database, there is only 10 people or 10 people's data is here. And you are one among the 10 who sent. So it just has to scan 10 records and it will immediately find this here. Correct?
Yeah.
Imagine you have 10 million records. Then it has to scan everyone to match this criteria of you here, your name, your user ID, and your data. It has to match, right? Everything to get you the information. You cannot, when you type, you cannot show my information there. Correct?
Yeah.
So that all processing is done in your application layer, and then the query is sent to the database layer to collect that information.
Yeah.
Now database will scan through that millions of records in order to pull your information. It will pull and give it to you.
Yeah.
So it's going to delay in your database to run the test, to run the data, to scan the data.
Yeah, because of the heavy data.
And then if all the data comes up and now you get full chunk of data into application layer. Application layer will truncate all the data that is required only for you and we will send it to you.
Yeah.
So that processing time is what we are looking for if there is large number of data.
Okay. Okay.
You are getting me?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions, guys? Fine. Now we know what to mean by volume test. So type of test to check if what is the effect of the system and the application when there is large number of data. So that is what is volume test. So let's see what the next type of test. Next is yeah.
So in short, we are actually testing the application performance based on the volume of the database, right?
Correct. Everything is checking the application performance only.
Okay, so based on the volume, like how big the volume is of the
Yes.
database. Okay.
Yes, how big the volume of the database is.
Okay.
The next what we are going to see is capacity testing. Now, capacity testing, right? Capacity testing is to find the capacity of the system or infrastructure. What am I writing here? Infrastructure and application. Now, it means that, say example, what do you mean by capacity testing? So, capacity testing means that how many system or like how many users or transactions a given web application can meet till the performance degrades. So what it means, say example, you are having food. Let's take a simple example. You are going into a restaurant, a buffet restaurant, and you are trying to eat food there. Now, there is a capacity in which your stomach can take, right? You are going on eating and eating and eating. At certain point, your stomach bloats up and says that your body says that enough, I can't take any more. That is what is capacity testing. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to have my servers here. I'm going to mimic with the tool and I'm going to send, say my load test. I will start with my load test. And then I will start increasing the number of users. I'll start increasing the number of transactions to a point where I know that, say in 1x, 2x or 3x, my SLA would be, that is service level agreement would be, we'll talk about it, don't worry. SLA would be 5 seconds for a specific screen. At one point, this will break and it will go to 6 seconds or 5.5 seconds. At what point my infrastructure and my application will run out of my SLA. That is what is capacity testing. Okay, this is a separate concept. You will not do this. This is called capacity testing and capacity modeling. So this is usually done by performance engineers who are next level. Okay, so this is done by capacity planners, capacity testers. All those things are next level. So you will not be working on this. Similar to stress test, but here we'll go. Stress test is just bombarding the system to see where it breaks, right? But here we'll go in a gradual pace. We'll increase it 10, if it's say 20, then 30 users, then we'll increase 40 users to see whether when my response time goes out of my SLA. At that point, this is the capacity of the system. Okay, there are specific people available called capacity testers and capacity modeling, where they will do only this activity to find out this and then tune the system so that at this point it still responds at this. Then they will go to the next level. Still, they will tune the system to get this response time. So those are specific people who do that. Usually you don't do this. This doesn't come under your level. Okay. Next, what we are going to see is reliability testing. Reliability testing. Now, what is reliability testing? Reliability testing is again divided into 3 categories: smoke test, the second one is component test, and the third one is endurance test. Now, smoke test is similar to your load test. So this will cover up when you are doing your load test. So you don't do this separate. Component, that is to find out what is smoke test. Smoke test is to compare my release 1 with release 2 and see whether my application is not degrading. That's exactly what you're doing in load test. So I'm deleting that off. Component test is to see how my new version, the component that was created, responds, and how the integration works. That's again what we are going to see in load test. So I'm going to take these two out and merge it with my load test. So that we are not going to do this, but your endurance test is completely different. Now, what is endurance test? Let's see what is endurance test. Now, endurance test is to find what is the endurance of the application. What do you mean by, can anyone tell me what do you mean by endurance? What do you mean by endurance? No one? No, I'm not talking about about performance testing. Just the word endurance.
It basically means how long you can go without breaking.
It basically means how long you can sustain without breaking. Endurance, how long you can sustain, right? How long you can sustain at a certain peak load. No, I'm not near my peak. I can't. Do I have an option? No. So my peak is always going up. I know. Everyone, if they even then they will also feel the same thing. Correct? Okay. So yeah. So now endurance is how long the system can sustain. But we are not going to break the system. No, we are not going to break the system here. In a day, when a normal working day is between 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. This 8 hours. If there is continuous load on the system, how will my system behave? How will my application respond? How will my CPU? What is the CPU usage? What is the memory usage? How is my memory used? All those things are what we are going to see. So what I will do, this test, basically we will take the load test settings, all the settings that we did in the load test. Usually we run the load test for 1 hour, correct? What I'm going to do, I'm just going to change the duration to 8 hours. That's all. So I'm going to put the peak load, a day's peak load. The peak load would be, we would have seen in one hour somewhere in a day, we would have seen this peak load. That's the peak load that we'll take for stress test. Load test. We'll do this when we're doing the workload modeling. This peak load, what you'll do, you'll sustain this peak load for 8 hours to see how your application behaves. Some companies do 8 hours. Some companies do 16 hours. Some companies do 24 hours. Some companies do 32 hours. This is the maximum. There are companies who do 48 hours also. This is the maximum they go. So for 48 hours, that is almost 2 full days. If you're not going to stop between 9 to 5 p.m., stop it, come tomorrow 9 to 5 p.m. No. You kick off the test for the next 48 hours and see how my application responds, how my CPU behaves, how my memory behaves, everything you're going to keep monitoring. That's what. So that is what my application, that is how your endurance, you're literally testing the endurance of that particular application. How if you put a peak load in the system, how for an extended duration of time, how my application is sustaining that load. That's what is endurance test all about. So that is a key test that we will do release after release. Guys, you are able to understand this? Any questions? Yep.
How often do we do this, Rajesh?
Every release.
Of only during the release. After that, we won't be doing this.
No. So in order for you to sign off the release, you need the sign off from the manual testing team.
Okay.
You need a sign off from the automation team.
Okay.
You need a sign off from the performance team.
Okay.
So performance team, you will run load, stress, and endurance
Okay.
for 8 hours. You don't run it for 48 hours.
Okay. Okay.
Because you don't have that much time. If it's in an agile project, you hardly get 1 day for running. You don't. So what you usually do, you kick off in the night. So if it's 24 hours, you'll start during the day, run the whole night. Next day morning, you'll stop the test.
Okay.
48 hours test, I have done couple of times when there is a major migration, say they are moving from 10G to 11I or something like that, a major project, right, where you have a lot of time.
Right.
There they might do a over period of time sustaining all those things. Otherwise they won't do on a release by release.
Okay.
Release by release is done only 8 hours.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Fine.
Rajesh, so it is done compulsory at least for 8 hours, is it? The endurance test? Hello?
Oh, sorry. Minimum that we do is 8 hours. You're able to get me? Hello?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So that's all the type of test that we saw. So now what are all types of tests that we saw? We saw what is load test, what is stress test, what is volume test, what is capacity testing, what is reliability testing, and the last one is scalability. What am I writing? Give me a second, please. Scalability testing. Now, what is scalability testing? Right? Scalability testing means that you are going to check at a certain point how my application is going to behave. Yes, whether it can cope up. If I am scaling up with a certain infrastructure, I have an infrastructure and I am scaling up my request, right? Initially for my load test, stress test, all the endurance test I tested. Now, say example for the load test I tested 500. Stress test I did 1000. That is 2x. That they say more than enough. You just tested for 1000. Now my stress test is also able to. Now you will see 1500, 1000, 2000. You will scale up to see how my infrastructure behaves. This is the key aspect. You're not bothered about the response time. You're not going to look into the response time. You will see how my infrastructure is. If my infrastructure can scale up to that certain limit, that's what you are looking at here. So here the focus would be on the infrastructure. Okay. So that is scalability testing. Next, what we are going to see is what are the testing processes. Performance testing process. This is a very, very important interview question. What is the term? They will ask you what is the testing process or performance life cycle. Can you tell me the performance life cycle? So this is how you will. There are 7 steps in performance life cycle. 1, identify your testing environment. 2, what is the second one? Identify performance, performance acceptance criteria. Acceptance criteria. 3, plan and design. Plan and design. 4, configure. 5 is implement. 6 is run. 7 is analyze, and 8 is closure. 8 is closure. So there are 8 steps in the performance testing process. First, you identify the environment. Second is you identify the performance acceptance criteria. Third is plan the design, configure, implement, run, analyze, and closure. So let's quickly see this and wind up for today. What is identify the environment? Now, what do you mean by identifying the test environment? Here, you are going to find out physically what environment are you going to test. What are the is the application in production or is it a new application? Then what do you say? What are the tools that you're going to test? Say let's write that down here. So I'm going to Jesus. 1. Identify the environment. So 1, you will see what application you are going to test. What application you are going to test. 2, what environment. 3, is your application in production or new. 4, what tool you are going to use. What tool you are going to use for testing. And then 5, what hardware configuration you get. So that means that, say example, in production you might have 4 servers for your application server, but in your test environment you might have only 2. So it's a 50% scaled down version. So you have to find out that right before even you start your test. Then what else? Okay, fine. These are the 5 things that you will identify when you are working on the environment. Guys, write it down. It's very important. Okay, when identifying the environment, you are going to identify what application, what is the environment that you're going to work with. It might be a UAT environment, or is it a performance environment that you're going to get. What environment is your application in production, or it's a new application. What tool you're going to get. Is it load runner, JMeter? What tool you're going to work with. What is the hardware configuration that we have. Is it what scaled down version of your hardware that we have in the test environment. These are the questions that you will ask when you are working with the first process. Second one is acceptance criteria. Acceptance criteria. Now, acceptance criteria means that what is the goal? Say example, my client wants all the response time of each and every page to be less than 3 seconds, or they want more number of the throughput to be around this stage, or hits to be there. We'll talk about all these things, don't worry. So what is the goal? If they say all my screens should not be more than 3 seconds, that's your acceptance criteria. So when you run the test, if you see that this is more than 3 seconds, then the acceptance criteria do not match. So that's what you need to see that's what you need to find out in the acceptance criteria. Third one is plan and design. Once you get all this information, this is where you will develop your test plan. You will write your test plan here. Then you will identify what type of test that you need to run. Is it load test, stress test, endurance test? stress test, endurance test, all the tests that what we want to run here, right? That's where we plan, and then what we do our scripting here, right? We do all those things in this plan and design. Fourth one is configure the test environment. So configure, you will start working on installing the tool in this place. You will start configuring your tool with your application. All those configuration might be already set up for you, or you might have to do that. That's all. So you installing the tool, getting the setting up everything, all those things you will do here. Five is implement the design. So now implement the design. Implement is where you are going to actually complete the scripting here. This is where you will be completing your scripting here. You might do a POC here to see everything works, and then here you might be start working on the design of your scripts here. Then sixth one is run the test. So run is where you're going to run your execution. This is where you're going to execute with X number of, proof of concept. Yes. Now this is where you're going to execute with X number of load to see whether all what you have identified, planned, everything starts showing up here. Seventh one is analyze. Analyze is you are going to, after you run the test, you will see what is the response time coming here and see where it's going slower. If it's correct, it's not correct, you will prepare the report. Everything is in the analyze. And the last one is closure. Closure is where you are going to send the report and explain the customer or the client what did you see in this particular test. This is how the complete flow of the application or complete process where for your performance testing is.